came back, it was more guided by spirit than an elder saying, "This is your name." But what I received from spirit was the name, White Wolf, and from that time to still this day, I use that and I respect it. And to me, if a lot of people will say, "Yeah, you are like the wolf. You are, that leader, that teacher, that healer," and the white, to me, when somebody says, "What does White Wolf stand for, or what does it mean?" To me, it means healing community leader. And I try to walk with that and all that I do. And I always say we're only human. Sometimes we battle with that.
That's right.
But to me, it's a good name, and it fits, in the purpose that I serve.
Yeah. Well, along the way, through all of your studies, because you have a broad range of studies already under your belt, if you wouldn't mind just to tell us a few of those, but tell us also, what one made the biggest impact for you in your search for your spirituality?
Well, talking about the Rainbow Warrior Society, I was talking a little bit about how that goes back to honoring the wisdom keepers. So it's kind of finding a balance. Where I'm at now is I practice and I teach core shamanism. And some people don't know what shamanism is. And it's a way that, I guess the best definition of shamanism would be kind of a way that we connect to spirit and a way that we connect to the soul in this world and in the afterworld, that we would say. And I have walked with many different traditions. I'm a Mesa carrier in the Peruvian tradition, and that comes from the Inca, from the Mantu Picchu area, and stayed and studied with an elder in that tradition for a while. Done some things with the Lakota and the Ojibwa and Cheyenne, and the core shamanism practice that I really like is it's a practice that they look at all the indigenous wisdoms in the world. We can talk about Tibetan Buddhism to Hindu traditions to Native American spirituality, and they, through anthropologic studies and through research with going to the tribes and going to these wisdom keepers, they come up with kind of a cross-cultural practice. If we were sitting in this room with a Navajo wisdom keeper and a Buddhist, monk, and to say, how do you connect to spirit? Using the drum. How do you use the drum? The interesting thing from one of my teachers talked about is, in every culture there's a drum, there's a fire, there's a language, and there's usually a dance. So they, talk about that, and the foundation I'm involved in, the foundation of shamanic studies, and they do their teachings based on looking at all the common cultural practices of the world. And for me, it's sometimes when we go into a specific tradition, especially for myself, just say like Lakota, for example, which was my first path. We get stuck in that tradition, and that's all we want to do, and we close ourselves to maybe something else. And the core shamanism, I only been involved in core shamanism for probably about the last 4 or 5 years, but it allows me to not find a religion, but find a spiritual practice that's earth-based, that's nature-based, that connects with the soul and spirit. And if I want to practice Hinduism, or if I want to practice, Tibetan Buddhism, or I want to connect with the Hopi, a lot of that practices are common practices. So it's, when I teach in our teaching circle, no matter what person's walking, they can receive the tools, they can connect with their own spirit guides and connect with their own soul and use those practices. And that's one of the things that I really love about the foundation at the work they do, because they're representing and preserving all spiritual practices, all that ancient wisdom, which is just, to me, is awesome, and it opens us so much more up to then just one specific way.
Well, yeah, it is a more, I don't want to, lessen it, but like more of a hodgepodge. You can put together pieces of it and learn all of it at one point in time. Sure. Yeah, so recently you went out on a trek. Yeah, I've been waiting to hear about this. That's for sure. I know it. You started and went out to Mount Shasta.
Mount Shasta.
Yeah. Would you mind to tell us a little bit about your adventure?
It was, it's always interesting, and I always kind of listen to the questions that are asked and really kind of get what Spirit wants me to share. How when you sit with like elders too, they'll kind of listen to the question, and before they answer, really kind of sit in stillness. And you'll see that a lot with the Buddhists. And when it comes to taking trips for myself, I usually like to drive. You see more, you experience more, you can stop, you can, go with what they say, go with the wind. So, first, when we did this last trip, we kind of put the energy out there that it might be a community trip and to kind of do somewhat of a pilgrimage. And the more we got closer to the trip, the more Spirit told me that it's supposed to be my significant other, Jessica, and myself to take this trip. Spirit has a way of doing things. Sometimes
Indeed.
you'll have an idea and it'll get changed. So it was a very interesting trip in shamanic and in a lot of ancient wisdom practices. They talk about a term called power spots, or a place of power to rebalance, to rejuvenate. Just like a lot of people will talk about, if you're unbalanced, go to a body of water and bathe in the body of water, and that's been a common practice of a lot of traditions. So we first started out, I think the first place that we stopped was Bear Butte, which is where the Lakota and Cheyenne do Sundance ceremonies and other ceremonies there. And it was kind of like, me and Jess been around ceremonies with a Cheyenne elder, and when we went there, it was like we were connecting with that energy again, and really open us back up to some of the things that we learned. When you go up to Bear Butte, like I said, one side's a Cheyenne, one side's a Lakota, and there's just probably thousands of prayer ties all over the place from ceremony. So it was kind of, the whole trip was regaining that power. When we go out as a healer or as a spiritual person, or just in general, sometimes we feel disconnected, or we feel just dragged down, and then we go to a place of power, a place that we feel at peace, a place that we may even dream about, and the whole trip was going to different places and not having an agenda, just being called by Spirit to go, okay, this was next. And the part of that was I did a 2-day training called The Spirits of Nature, and it was connecting with the energies of Mount Shasta. When we first got to the Mount Shasta area with my elder, we actually did a ceremony to honor the sun and to just sit in the essence of Mount Shasta and the sun, and to ask the sun, when we think of the sun, it's that loving energy, that heat, that passion, that fire, and to ask the sun to bring in what we would like to receive in the world, and then to let go what we no longer serves us to our highest good. So that was, the first start of it, and I'm probably going to forget the name of this park, but there's a park not too far from Shasta that my guys were saying this is a place that you need to go, and forgive me, I can't remember the actual name of the park, but it's about 2 hours away from the Shasta area, and it is one of the first sites of the Native American ghost dance. And the ghost dance, for those that don't know, it's kind of similar to where we're at right now. They talked about when in the ghost dance, when the buffaloes were being slaughtered, when Native people were being forced on the reservations or to the schools. There's a elder chief, his name was Wovoka, and during a sun solstice, an eclipse, he got a vision, and the vision was this dance, and it was a dance that he was to share with the people to bring balance back to the earth, to bring the buffalo back, to bring the ancestors back. So I went out to this for whatever reason. So I recorded my experience in this park that I haven't even showed anybody yet until the time is right. But went out to the park, and immediately it was a connection about the Rainbow Warrior, a connection about going back to these wisdom keepers and bringing their teachings, to the world. And when I went out there, it was pretty interesting. It's kind of a lava beds. It almost looks like, rock formations from Hawaii in this place in California. And when I was walking out there, there was several caves that the elders and the community out there used to live in. And you can go into some of the caves and connect with those energies and then go out to this ghost dance spot. And when I went out to the ghost dance spot, once I arrived there, there was a long staff with all these prayer ties. And in the staff, I kind of, in the way that I walk, we drop tobacco a lot of times and say a prayer. That's kind of an ancient way to pray and connect. And, I kind of was called by Spirit to do a drumming ceremony there and connect with the energies of the ancestors. And when I did, it started to rain. And this is, an area that is somewhat desert and hadn't had a lot of rain. And that was the first kind of thing, connecting with the energies of the winged ones that I connect with. We say the winged ones are the ones that carry our prayers to Creator, like the eagle, is the one that flies the highest. That's why the feathers are so sacred. But in that way, it started to rain. And after I connected and did ceremony out there, I went back to the trail and back to my car, and there was a huge rainbow. And for me at that time, it was like, we're talking about the Rainbow Warrior prophecy. We're talking about bringing these ancient wisdom keepers back in either spirit form or the wisdom keepers that are still in this world. And they have the confirmation of seeing the rainbow when I went out there. That was the work that I was doing. So it was a pretty, they say the great mystery. Some things my significant other will say, oh, that's just a coincidence, I said, I don't think so.
Serendipitous,
There's some things that, they say the great mystery for many reasons. But when we're able to humble ourselves and connect in that way with Spirit and share our heart and have that connection in whatever spiritual practice we walk, is a pretty interesting experience. That's why I do the work that I do. It helps me, it helps others, and if we can open up to that, it's kind of a really beautiful way to experience something like that.
Indeed, and the optimal word there was open up to it. You have to be open to it to receive it, to hear it, to see your signs, as you did your rainbow that day. So was that the end of your trek?
It's kind of all a blur in all the different places that we went to. We went down Highway 1 and Highway 101, where everywhere you turn is a photographic, picturesque front with the ocean there and the water, and driving down there, we had a experience of seeing some seals up on the rocks and stuff. So it was really cool trip, but it's kind of all a blur now.
Right.
But we did a little bit of that. Went out to San Francisco and kind of Fisherman's Wharf area and different things. So it's a pretty interesting experience. But every time we kind of take a long trip, it's kind of to me it's a spiritual pilgrimage. You open up and you connect with those energies, and then for me, it's like when I come back to a lot of those places, my artist side starts to want to paint and to create and draw, because you open up that creativity, that we so have been blocked into our little box in our little cave,
Of the everyday rigmarole, yeah. You know how you all feel when you get home from a vacation, or you went out and you took a walk through the woods, or, just even met up with an old-time friend or something. You come back feeling a little rejuvenated, a little renewed, a little more empowered. I could imagine that it was to the nth degree for you during this trip, huh?
Yeah, I would definitely say so.
Yeah.
We need to do that. We need to take that time, and even if it's 10 minutes to take a walk around the block or in the woods to kind of rejuvenate when we're disconnected, to me it helps.
Yeah. Even go outside without any shoes on or something, just reconnect, sit outside under a tree. Hug a tree. My husband made me hug a tree 15 years ago. So that changed a lot, I know. But right now, if you don't mind, Bruce, we're going to go ahead and do the time. It is 11:30 a.m. You're listening to WXMR 94.3 FM, LP Marengo. And we have sponsors that are proud partners. And one of them would be...
I would say Edwards Jones. Jim Duncan at the Marengo branch of Edwards Jones, making